Recording. Hi, I'm Renee Hobbs. It's my goodness, it's April 18th already. I'm here with the amazing students of COM 416 Propaganda, and we are steaming toward the end of the semester. So I see who is joining us. I see Kelsey Martin, I see Jess Blackledge, and I see Peyton Scandon. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and let's see what's going on here. Too many windows, that's for sure. Okay, so here we are at the Propaganda 2017 website. I was just talking to Kelsey about this sort of taking your temperature on your like sanity, because we academics, we always say April is the cruelest month, right? It's when faculty lose their mind. It's when administrators get fired, right? It's when all hell breaks loose in a million ways. And there's like surprises, you know, you turn on your email and it's like, oh, crazy. So on a scale of 5 to 1, where 5 means you are ready to graduate and everything is cool, and 1 means you are out of your mind with like craziness, what's your temperature? Where are you right now? On a scale of 5, all things is good, 1 is out of your mind. Where are you? I see some 3s, I see some 2s. Okay, I'm a 2 for sure. So Kelsey, you and I, we're not on the good end of that scale. The rest of you are holding tight. I'm really glad to see that. So happy to hear that you're doing okay. That's good. Okay, so you should mute your microphone now while I talk a little bit about the outline for today. Okay, so you can see a couple of things. I have put up a list of your LEAP 3 projects. I'm going to talk about that I guess I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let me just kind of take you to our page for this week. Our topic is fake news, demagoguery, and the alt-right. We have come a long way since the beginning of the semester because we started talking about this 12 weeks ago. And well, we know so much more now. So here's what I'd like to accomplish in the next 60 minutes. But why don't we start with this first one, LEAP 3, collaborate, compare, and contrast. Okay, so I tried real hard to grade your papers this week, but I didn't make a lot of progress. And one of the reasons why I didn't make a lot of progress is that not all of your stuff is linked and working properly. So some of you probably got an email from me today or a request saying, please make your Google Doc open editing so that I can access it. You guys know that because of the way that the University of Rhode Island really like messes with your URI Gmail, it disables it. You can't use YouTube. You can't do anything with it. So I sent you a request from my Renee Hobbs 2002 Gmail to open up your windows. But overall, as I scanned these projects, I was fascinated with the diversity of topics. So Brittany and Jessica, you tackled women's movement propaganda, right? From 3 time periods. Meredith and Quinna, you looked at space race propaganda. How absolutely fascinating. Samantha and Monica, you tackled Camel tobacco propaganda, past and present. Caitlin and Jana, you looked at marijuana, or I guess we could say anti-marijuana propaganda from 2 time periods. Jordan and Zachary, you tackled the McDonald's propaganda over time. Olivia and Matthew looked at cigarette industry propaganda. A fascinating project by Nick and Michaela looking at racism propaganda in film, comparing 1939 Gone with the Wind with 2017 Get Out. Can't wait to read that. Beauty Standards by Peyton and Dominique. Gun Control Propaganda by Kelsey. And Kelsey, who was your partner? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
It was Julia Ritter.
Aha! Okay, thank you very much. I'll make sure I put that name in after the class is over. Alcohol Propaganda by Matt and Patrick. Really fascinating. Makeup Propaganda, comparing Maybelline and CoverGirl. Cosmetics. A fascinating choice by Madison and Michaela on looking at Planned Parenthood. Look at these two print ads from 1980 and 2008 on Planned Parenthood. Absolutely fascinating. Keith and Michelle, Propaganda in the Pharmaceutical Industry. So I just want to, this week I'm going to get serious about these grades, and I really want to get my feedback to you back by next Wednesday for sure. But you can help me out, okay? What I think's going on a little bit is that you may check your links and they look fine to you because you're already logged into everything. So why don't you try using the Chrome Incognito. Give me a thumbs up if you've used the Incognito function before. Thumbs up on that. Who's used the Incognito function? No, you haven't. Okay. So let me just demonstrate how to do that, right? So Chrome Incognito is really helpful because it allows you to search the internet without your identity, without your identity tags following you around. So to do that, you just go up here to Chrome, and where it says File, pull down New Tab, New Window, New Incognito Window. And what that does is it pulls up a window that doesn't have any of your logins installed. And that allows you to look at how a stranger would see your website, right? So in many cases, when I tried to go look at your LEAP 3, I couldn't access the file. I can't grade it if I can't see it. So check to be sure that at your LEAP 3 page, you have an academic paper that's posted using Google Docs with open editing, and that a link to your infographic works properly. Not enough of you have this going on yet, and that poses a real grading problem for me. And if it isn't fixed, you're going to get a ding. I don't want to ding you for something so stupid, but you got to fix it, right? So go check. So here's an example. This is a really good example. This is Brittany and Jess. Jess, you're doing everything right, girl. Give yourself a thumbs up there. This is working, right? So at Brittany's website, she has links to 2 papers. That's just as the instructions ask for. There's an instruction to a research paper. And notice, it goes to a Google Doc. And let's just see if that Google Doc has open editing, right? So I'm not sure if it has open editing yet, but I noticed that my share button is not, oh yeah, there it is. It wakes up there. Now I'm going to see if I can make a comment. Can I make a comment here? I'm going to use the comment bar. I'm going to try to find where is the comment bar. So Jess, I wonder if this document has an open editing share, okay?
Email, and I, through my account, I allowed you permission to edit. I don't know if it's because you're under Brittany's WordPress, it might not let you.
Aha, got it. I do see that now I can add a comment. See how I just added a comment, right? Let me see if I can comment here. Right, so fantastic. So your document is working absolutely perfectly, right? And then let me just go back to your main page, or to Brittany's main page. Here it is, loading up, and now I'm going to check to see that her infographic link is working. Oops, I clicked on the wrong link. Gosh, you know, It's the afternoon. I need my cup of coffee. Okay, here's the infographic. And loading, loading, loading. And it looks like it loads perfectly. So you girls rock. That's exactly what everybody's project should look like, right? So that I can see and read clearly the whole thing. This is really fascinating. I cannot wait to read this, okay? So take some time today, because I'm going to be grading starting tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. It's going to take me 4 days to get through them, but make sure that your links all work and that for each of the partners, you include a link to that academic essay as a Google Doc with open editing, and that your infographic is clearly hyperlinked there. Do you guys have any questions? Imagine that your peers and students might have questions. Any questions?
I know that mine and Dominique's infographic, she had worked with, I just asked her what the website was that we used, because I forget what it was called, but she had used it in a different class, and it wasn't letting us hyperlink the website that we use for the infographic onto our blog website. So I know that we screenshotted it and put it into our blog post. Is that okay if it's not the hyperlink though?
Yep.
Okay.
Peyton, that's a good example of a totally acceptable workaround.
Okay.
That's why I had that same question too. That's what my problem had that too.
You had to do that too? Yeah. So obviously the higher quality your screenshot is, the better, and that's challenging sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that is a totally acceptable workaround. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Thanks for asking that question, because I bet a bunch of people were thinking about it. Any other questions you have about that? Getting your Leap 3 ready for me to grade this week?
Yeah, so I have my picture chart up on my website or whatever. But when I click on it, nothing comes up. And I thought that Matt had fixed that problem, like, because he did that part of the project, and he said that he fixed it, and I think it's up on his end, but like I can't access it. So I don't know if you're able to access it, but he can access it.
He can access it, and if it's linkable on his page.
Yeah.
Okay, and did you say you have a screenshot of it?
No, I don't even have that.
I would suggest you collaborate with him and see if you can figure out how to get something that looks like an infographic on your page.
Okay.
If you can, so work on that. Okay, what other questions do you have about that? Okay, so I'm just really looking forward to reading these. I think one of the things that I definitely think is, just so cool about this class is that not everybody learns. I mean, I'm sure you guys have figured this out right by now. Not everybody learns the same things in this class. I think that's probably one of the most interesting things about the class, and why the class is interesting to me to teach year after year, because you developed your own expertise on this topic as you explored the history of propaganda in two time periods. And in some ways, I think that's a really good theme for, most of you are graduating seniors and you're going to go out into the world. And a big part of what you learn at university and what prepares you for the next part of learning, the early 20s part of learning, is realizing that you're in charge of your education. You're in charge of your lifelong learning. And a big part of that is figuring out where you want to be an expert and where you want to claim your expertise, because that's what makes you employable. Right? So you have a lot of skills. You are developing a lot of skills that make you very, very employable. And you're thinking as you move through your coursework and the skills that we're expecting you to have, you're thinking about that in relation to the skills you need in the workplace. One thing I've observed, in my career over many years is that often when I fuck up, my employer won't tell me why. Something just happens and I'm like, all of a sudden, what? I'm blindsided. So in a way, the idea of trying to provide direct feedback and where you are meeting expectations and where you are not is actually kind of modeling a practice that will be good for you as an emerging leader, right? As you have to be frank and candid with people around what's working and what's not working. And I'm happy to see that some of you were able to have really good relationships with your partners, where you were able to provide each other with frank and candid feedback in a kind way that was still meaningful. And then I know that others of you struggled with that. So I'm grateful for the learning that happened. And I guess I want to say one thing to those of you who had a disastrous relationship or disastrous experience with your partner, because I can see that some of you have. That's another thing that I've learned over a lifetime of ambition. I learn more from failure than from success. So that's a little consolation to think about, right? That in some ways, a bad collaboration provides a better opportunity to reflect on what you value and what's important to you and who you are. So in a way, we kind of say we hope students have bad experiences in collaboration. I mean, not every time, for God's sakes, but at least a couple of times. Because often that gives a lot of clarity for like what kind of worker, what kind of partner are you going to be, right, in life. So I hope you've had a chance to think about some of those topics as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Mark Zuckerberg in the news. Thumbs up if you saw Mark Zuckerberg in the news this week, or it came across your Facebook, or you noticed it in your social media. It was inescapable, wasn't it? Right? One of the things I really, really appreciated was that some of you continue to share on our COM416 hashtag some really, really interesting spreading of ideas here, and really happy to notice the way in which the community is developing here. This week, I'm going to ask you to do some more tweeting. A couple weeks ago, you tweeted about ISIS, but it's clear that many of you are making connections to the what we're learning from the Mark Zuckerberg testimony in relation to what we're learning about the course. Have you had the opportunity to do any informal dialogue with your friends or your family about the Mark Zuckerberg testimony in relation to the topic of propaganda? Has the topic come up?
Were we supposed to post on that website?
No. That's called an aggregator, Olivia. I'm glad you asked about that. So that's a really cool tool. It's a free website. I just typed in COM416 and it aggregates all the COM416 posts and displays them like that. Cool, huh? Right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of tools like that make social media sharing like pretty. And that's just an example there. So no worries on that. But hey, I'd like to hear from you about whether or not you had the opportunity to talk to anybody about the Mark Zuckerberg testimony. Did it come up in conversation? Did you were able to share anything? Do you have any opinions about it?
No, I haven't talked about it with like my family or anything. It was something that I was interested in watching, but like end of the year, like it's just crazy time right now. I think they make a lot of good points. I read somewhere that like he was getting backlash about the fact that Facebook has facial recognition and no one gave Facebook permission to do that. When you go to tag people, suggested tag, and the tags come up already and you don't even have to do anything. Yeah.
That's a great example about how when that feature was developed, we were never invited to choose that.
Right.
It just happened, right? And some of us liked that feature, some of us hated that feature, but given what an intimate kind of phenomenon it is, we weren't invited to have any choice. Any other way you found that talking about the testimony, Meredith?
Yeah, I was talking about it with someone about how it's kind of interesting how everyone is really upset about the fact now that Facebook has their personal information. But I think that like everything that's going on in the media right now, like getting people against Facebook, like that's propaganda to get people against Facebook. One of my friends was saying, she said, go into the settings. She's like, you can see all of the stuff Facebook knows about me. They know that like I'm single. They know I'm in school. They know I'm a Democrat. And she was all pissed about it. And I like said to her, you gave them all of that information when you signed up for Facebook. So the only reason you're alarmed about it now is because all of the newspapers are telling you to be alarmed about it. Up until now, you gave them that information and you didn't really care. So I think the whole thing is kind of ironic.
Yeah, very nice. It's interesting to frame the anti-Facebook activism as a form of propaganda and to see how it's working on the people in your community. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, like I got a notification that one of my friends accessed the app that like got hacked. So like they were able to access some of my information, but just like the more preliminary stuff, like the things that I've put on my profile that's public. And like it's not concerning to me whatsoever. But I mean, I don't know, but like that's always so tough in my opinion. Like to debate whether like how much security there should be on like social media on that kind of thing, because I don't have anything to hide. Like what are they really gonna like gain from knowing what pages I like, I guess. But yeah.
In some ways, when those of we know about the economics of media, we know that that's what we get for having Facebook be free. That's what we do. That's what we pay. That's what we pay for Facebook to be free. So understanding the economics of Facebook really helps with this issue a lot. Okay, so let me just keep going because we do have like so many things to talk about. But I'm glad that you're paying attention to that. I'm glad you're recognizing it as propaganda. It's really a crazy time in the news right now, and the most important thing is for you guys to graduate, right? And or finish the semester. So I'm glad your priorities are in the right order. But boy, the convergence between this class and life right now is pretty intense. Okay, so what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about, I was so pleased to see how you dealt with this they say, I say activity. I've already started commenting on these because I just was really thrilled at the good work here. Truthfully, that's Olivia. I'm going to mute you, Olivia. Truthfully, I think I've seen some of your best, your crispest, and your most beautiful writing, right? As you entered the conversation. And it's interesting about how this concept is so simple. Scholarship is a conversation, and yet so like profound. Because I think I was probably out of undergrad. I was probably in grad school before I really understood this. When I was an undergrad, I thought like teachers just tortured me by asking me to write and read and write academic papers and read. I thought it was like torture. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was also torture, right? And I didn't realize until I was older that what that was doing was preparing me to talk to anyone. And of course, that's what it did. I can now talk to anyone about anything because I'm able to listen to other people, understand what they're saying, and then have an opinion and respond back. And if there's any life skill that is really, really, really will get you places, it's being able to enter the conversation. So reading and writing with a lot of brilliant people, as were the authors that we read this week, gives you the opportunity to have social power, right? And social power is a key to your career success and to your life success. So I was so pleased to see great writing and great synthesis here. And Meredith, here's to you really in starting off this concise synthesis of this idea is actually kind of better written than the author. So there, congrats to you on that, right?
Thanks.
And I especially liked your strong, I moved your headline there. See, that's the problem here. Whoops. Your strong use of the headline, right? That headline grabs my attention. I read how you quote from the Wallace Wells article, and then you essentially help us understand one big theme of these readings, right? Which some people are engaged in the alt-right movement as a dangerous form of play, right? And you use the word cavalier, and you say it's flippant, right? And that's a great way to describe what these readings are about, right? So really some interesting choices here. And Michaela, I was really pleased to see how you made the connection right back to Holiday. That's really intentional. We started with Holiday, and we're coming back to some of his ideas. So again, great use of the headline here, Monica, right? Deny, deny, deny. And you introduce us to theme 2 of the readings. This idea that the platforms, Facebook, Google, YouTube, that these platforms that are destabilizing journalism are facilitating the spread of misinformation really for economic gain, right? They've become the largest media companies in the world with a strategy to destabilize journalism, and the spread of misinformation has actually been good for their bottom line, right? So theme 2, I think several of you commented on, right? So the Facebook, there's a great headline, the Facebook news empire. Samantha explains it. And this is another great headline, our confident, misinformed public, right? So Samantha, you found a really interesting article. I'm actually going to go look at this a little bit about the senators who created a fake Facebook page in order to demonstrate how easy it was to spread misinformation. I thought that was really cool. And Samantha, you introduced us to another theme, basically that something we've been studying all semester. It's easier than ever before to manipulate people with propaganda. So I was really pleased to see the quality of the work here, right? And also the quality of the choices that you made about new resources too. This idea that the problem, loved this, Caitlin, from your synthesis, this great choice of quote. I was really paying attention. Having read the articles myself, I was really paying attention to what, stuck out to you. And here you introduce a really big idea, that the problem isn't the lack of information, it's the lack of a shared context for interpreting it. That is a big theme for this week's readings. Again, Caitlin, a really great paraphrase. In fact, your paraphrase, because you wrote it in such a personal way, made me think a little bit about how sometimes I speak in such broad, general ways that I think I'm understanding my colleagues and friends, but maybe I don't, because I'm glossing over the hard topics, right? And I think maybe I do that sometimes too. Instead of getting to the hard topics, I gloss over them. And so that made me think about the connection between the political and the personal. Monica, loved this argument from you about how, if we spread false news faster than truth because we're so hardwired to be attracted to novelty. You write, the more surprising but true the story seems, the more clicks and reposts it will get. And that's been good for human history, but it's kind of challenging. So Madison, this quote, I feel like if I were to teach a part 2 of this course, or maybe an independent study, if there are any juniors in the class who want to continue studying this topic, loved this quote. The alt-right is a collective experiment in identity. Perhaps people need the safety of a group political identity in order to relieve themselves from the effort of thinking for themselves. You headline it, Hiding Behind Anon. I just feel like that's a topic that we hardly got to touch on, and probably we could spend many more weeks studying it. So in general, I was really, really pleased with the work you did. Like I said, I think some of your best writing came out in these juicy, chunky, lovely paragraphs. So Olivia, you make the connection to holiday. I just really, really enjoyed this. So I'm not sure how far, I got a little bit far, but do see when there's like a little number 1 up there, that's where I'm placing my comments. So, and feel free if you would like to comment on any of these ideas as well, but please look for my comments. I'll be reading these over the next few days. But just generally thought it was fantastic, and bravo to you for your great reading and synthesis. Okay, so now we're going to talk about demagoguery. We are going to just talk about demagoguery for about 15 minutes. We're going to start by watching a video. But let's preview the activity. I'm going to ask you to break up into a group with a partner to discuss which of these statements you agree or disagree with. Number 1, you can't have democracy without demagogues. Number 2, demagogue is just a loaded term for highly effective communicator. Number 3, demagogues thrive because people are gullible to accept promises of easy answers and simple solutions. Number 4, if our government worked properly, we wouldn't be enthralled by demagogues. Number 5, the separation of powers and the work of experts and elected politicians ensure that demagogues don't get too much control. And number 6, the best way to take down a demagogue is to expose his or her hypocrisy. So I want you to keep those ideas in mind as we watch this video, and then we're going to break up into small groups and have kind of a discussion. Which of those statements do you agree with, and which of those statements do you disagree with?
Democracy is about giving power to the people. From the Greek, demo, meaning people, and kratia, meaning power. In U.S. democracy, there are 3 separated powers: the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Each have a role in providing checks and balances to prevent the consolidation and abuse of power. But democracy is not speedy or free from problems. It gives power to the people while protecting the individual's rights to participate and be different. The system is deliberately designed to be slow and allow for debate and dissent between groups with different positions and opinions. But in times of crisis, global insecurity, economic downturn, and social conflict, the public feels threatened and calls for a big and immediate change. So, what happens if a charismatic candidate enters the race and makes sensational and idealistic promises about fast changes? What if he or she appeals to populist desires, fears, or reinforces popular prejudices to gain support? That charismatic candidate is telling people exactly what they want to hear. Mass fervor is created, and if this demagogue actually gets elected, nothing gets done. Laws are passed by Congress which doesn't have to take orders from the executive, and because the campaign was based on extreme promises, Congress is likely to erect barriers. president's extreme campaign promises are simply broken. Under pressure to deliver on big promises, the president may go around Congress, trading on fear, popularity, and nationalism to unilaterally get things done. How? By invoking executive orders and expanding presidential power. Or, the president can declare a state of emergency. Both can bypass safeguards and possibly suspend rights and freedoms by avoiding accountability, checks, and balances provided by Congress and the judiciary, and democracy is compromised. Maybe change shouldn't be so rapid after all. Democracy is not a comic book where vigilantes and evil villains fight for power. We do not need superheroes, revolutions, or quick fixes that imbalance power, create mass hysteria, or destroy basic rights. We need the democratic fundamentals, a free exchange of rational ideas, diversity of opinion, debate over policies, and rational, informed participation, even if that does take a little more time.
Okay, so I just was at the Harvard bookstore yesterday, and I found this great book. Maybe I will assign it for future classes, because look how cute and tiny it is, right? So it's such a cute, tiny
So the
little
job
book.
of the writer
Sorry,
is not
hold
to
on.
supply the ideas. It is to be patient.
There we go. So this book is called Demagoguery and Democracy. And one thing I thought would be useful before we begin is to make sure we have a good understanding of demagoguery, right? So here's one definition, because there's two concepts that are kind of related. Demagoguery is such a complicated word that we could say there's an alternative word. I'll talk about the word demagoguery, and then I'll give you an alternative choice you might use. What demagoguery is? Demagoguery is discourse that promises stability, certainty, and escape from the responsibilities of rhetoric by framing public policy in terms of the degree to which the out-group should be scapegoated for the current problems of the in-group. Whoa. Now, there's another term that you might like. It's called charismatic leadership. Charismatic leadership, right? Charismatic leadership is where the leader is perceived by the followers as somehow superhuman, where the followers blindly believe the leader's statements, where the followers unconditionally comply with the leader's directives for action, and where followers give the unqualified emotional commitment. Okay, so some demagogues use charismatic leadership to create an in-group. Okay, now let's return to our 6 questions. Given this week's readings and given your understanding of demagoguery, which of these statements do you agree or disagree with, and why? I'm going to ask you to partner up and talk that over for just 5 minutes. You might not even have time to talk about all of these topics. Just pick 1 or 2 if you want and dig into them. Give me a thumbs up if you know what we're going to be doing now. Okay, let me see if I can, hold on here. I've got to figure out, let me see if I can break you into groups. Where is that function? I forget. Breakout rooms. Here we go. Okay, there you go. Kelsey, Olivia, Peyton, you're going to be in one room. Meredith, Jess, and me will be in another room. We'll just talk for about 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Ooh, sorry. There we go. You should be able to see the rooms opening. Rooms are opening.
Let's see the question. Oh, Jesus, that was loud. Where are the questions? I don't have the page up.
I have one right here.
Okay.
So the first one is you can't have democracy without demagogues.
What do you think?
I kind of like agree and disagree with it. Like, I don't think that it's like in the video, like they said, we don't really need someone who's loud and gonna make us a bunch of promises. We just kind of need someone who's gonna get the job done. But I feel that like the public kind of leans more towards people who are like louder and make those promises. So like it's kind of like inevitable. Like they're gonna vote for those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know about this one because I feel like the answer depends just on how you define the word democracy. Because, like, I think if you think of what like a true democracy really is, there's one way to give an answer, and if you think of just kind of the democracy that is in practice, I would think differently. So I don't know. That one kind of stumps me.
Yeah, good point. Because, you know, in the two-party system of democracy, where you have to be a Republican or a Democrat, and there's only those two parties, you're probably likely to attract more people.
Right.
If you are like Jess, like you said, if you're, you know, if you use that strong emotional language. I mean, Obama was a very good demagogue. Right. And hope and change. And yeah, we all thought that was such a great feeling.
Yeah. Because with just the two parties, you kind of, people feel obligated to just like pick a side, like picking a team. But if it were more of a true democracy where there was no electoral college and people could just vote, then you don't really need one. So number 2, I guess. Demagogue is a loaded term for highly effective communicator. I mean, I kind of agree. I think highly effective communicator doesn't always mean that they're a positive communicator. It just means they're doing a good job. So I would say yes, I agree. What do you think?
No, yeah, I think so too. I think that like with our current president, a lot of people don't like get offended by what he says, and it doesn't necessarily mean he says like good things, but like he says it loud enough and he like targets people's fears so that he does gain listeners, even though he's not like pleasing everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so that's a good point. So here it's sort of like depends on what you mean by effective, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And for me, the trick is I guess I wonder if you can be unethical and effective.
Yeah, if your intentions are unethical, then you effectively accomplish your intentions. I say yeah. I say yeah. It's like lying to your parents. Like you successfully lied, you got what you wanted. So
you're effective.
Demagogues thrive because people are gullible to accept promises of easy answers and simple solutions. I think there's a fine line between being gullible and just people's, like, there's a difference between being intelligently not smart enough to see through it, and then everybody just has that psychological need to just hope for something. So I don't think it's just because people are, like, gullible or dumb. It's just people want to believe in it, even though they know they probably shouldn't.
I think that they're like misinformed too. I know with like I was learning in communication theory that like with the media it's so dangerous because people will just reaffirm the values that they already have. They'll look for like news sites that will just tell them what they want to hear. So I think that like they're gullible or like looking for like, well, they're kind of looking, they might be looking for simple solutions, whereas like looking for answers that they think will reaffirm their own values. So I think that's what a lot of people are doing as well.
Yeah. And I think people just, whether or not they really think the leader is doing a good job, they just kind of want to have him. It's like everybody kind of wants the president to just be like JFK. He's just like a good looking, fun guy. Like you want him to be the leader, even if you don't really think he's going to do a good job. So I don't think it's just because people are gullible. So 4, if our government worked properly, we wouldn't be enthralled by demagogues. I don't think it has anything to do with the government. I think a demagogue, can be like some person in your class or somebody in your office. Like it's a personality thing, and they could take over any kind of little party. It doesn't have to be the government. So I don't think that really has anything to do with it.
I agree.
Whoa. So you think there are demagogues like in the workplace and in the family?
Sure. I think in any group of people.
Now that is a really interesting idea. And I would bet there has not been a good essay on the demagogues in our, in our personal life.
Sure. I mean, like if you take a group of friends, no matter how much everybody likes each other, there's usually, sometimes two, usually one person who kind of decides what everybody's going to do. And it's not because they're demeaning and they're domineering. It's just people follow them. It happens in any group of people.
Right. That is a really fascinating framing for maybe moving beyond a kind of simplistic conceptualization of demagogue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think like assessing like how a government works, like it's all psychology because it's just how people think. It's not really very political. It's not about the issues. It's about what people are thinking, I think. But I don't be poli-sci, so I don't really know.
Cool.
Bless you.
Well, that's a big aha for me. So I'm just thinking of what a fun essay that would be, and what a fun essay would be to read or write. All right, I'm closing the breakout rooms. You guys rock.
Okay.
Okay, we are back. Thank you so much for participating in that discussion. I hope you found that useful. I think the topic of demagoguery has a lot of implications, I think, for not just our political life, but I guess also for our social life and our family life and our work life. So very interesting discussion. But now it's time for us in the last 15 minutes to talk a little bit about Leap 4. Because last week I was, kind of doing a solo thing there in Washington, D.C., I didn't get a chance to interact with you about Leap 4. And I know that you probably have many questions. I have to tell you a secret, and don't tell anybody. If it's okay with you, don't tell anybody. I've been teaching propaganda for a long, long time. Never in my entire, and as you know, I wrote Create to Learn. My students make media all the time, right? Never in my entire career as a college professor have I ever asked students to make propaganda. Never. You guys are my guinea pigs. I'm quite nervous and excited and scared about Leap 4 this time. And it will either be a great success or a smashing failure, but in any case, I'll learn something, and hopefully you will too.
So what is Leap 4 normally if it's not creating propaganda?
Sometimes Leap 4 is like a reflective essay where you tie together the themes,
okay.
synthesis kind of thing.
Let's do that one.
Well,
I'm down for that too.
Depending on how you do, that I might go back to that, but I think this is going to be better, right? So basically, this is a mini campaign. And so what I'm hoping you're going to do is try to apply what you've learned about propaganda to create some propaganda, right? And so I've asked you to go to this really cool website called dosomething.org. It has a lot of campaigns. It has a lot of propaganda campaigns, right? On topics that you might not have thought about, right? Like scare the shit out of apathy, right? Or as high school students getting suspended, unfair and harsh discipline practices in high school, teaching an older adult the basics of smartphones, right? Recycling, tobacco-free campuses, gun violence, getting HIV tested, help make YouTube better for people who are hard of hearing or deaf, right? Because there's so many of them and they're so intriguing, you should be able to find something that you can connect to, right? And
Trash stash. Challenge your friends to carry their trash for one day.
so it's about increasing awareness of how much garbage you make, right? How much garbage do you make in a day?
It probably smells so bad.
Exactly. So what's kind of interesting is Eddie Bernays would have been really proud of dosomething.org, right? Because, I mean, look at this. They've come up with a creative way to raise awareness through a public event. I mean, that's what Eddie Bernays said public relations was, right? He said that was a brilliant form of public relations, right? And here's what the problem is. Here's what the solution is. Now, you don't have to adhere to any of this in your campaign. You can take it in a totally different direction, but what you're responding to is how to increase awareness over the amount of garbage that we produce every day, right? And then the consequences of that. So find something cool at dosomething.org and then create two forms of propaganda. And I'm giving you some different formats that you might use, right? So you can create a series of images uploaded to Instagram. You can create 15 original memes. You can create a screencast video or an infographic. And of course, you can learn about simple, low-cost digital tools for propaganda by going to the design studio at Create to Learn. You might make a podcast. You might do some photo manipulation. You might make a vlog, right? Doing a little 3-minute first-person narrative vlog, right? Using some simple media production tools, right? So big ideas here. Get an A, right? By creating this propaganda mini campaign and then writing just a short essay about your work. Okay, so I am offering a $50 Amazon gift card to the best piece of propaganda in the campaign. And I'm pretty sure that you have questions, or theoretically you have questions as you review the specifications of this assignment. You're working under deadline pressure because this project needs to be due. This is the equivalent of your final exam on Friday, May 7th. What questions do you have?
On the if we do a podcast, are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to be talking about? Are we supposed to like be selling the idea? Is that what you want us to do? Like we are being the campaign for it?
So as a propagandist, you have to figure out what your goals are, right?
Okay.
So that's part of like, it's almost like you have to design, what are your goals? Who is your target audience, right? What kind of knowledge or attitudes or feelings do you want to activate?
So is that what we're saying in the podcast, or are we like creating something that answers those questions without directly saying them?
Oh,
yeah.
I think, are you asking is the podcast an actual piece of propaganda,
Yeah.
or is it an analysis?
Or yeah.
In this case, the podcast is an actual piece of propaganda.
Okay.
Right? So let's just brainstorm a little bit on that trash thing.
Mhm.
Let's say you pick that trash thing, helping people gain awareness of how much trash they produce. Now, I'm in my kitchen right now, and I mean, I know for sure that I produce a lot of pounds of trash, right? Okay, I know that for sure. So I could imagine a podcast targeting old ladies, right? Old upper middle class white ladies, right?
Mhm.
I could imagine having a conversation about, the garbage and where does it go, right? And I might even do a little I don't know anything about where my garbage goes, and I don't know anything about how much it makes, but here's what I learned, right? And maybe I'll have it be a dialogue between me and somebody about how much garbage we make and how much packaging is on the stuff that we buy,
I know.
right? And that might be the whole 5 minutes,
Okay.
right? So,
Mhm.
but that may not be the right target audience for your campaign, right? You may have a different target audience, and you might think about your campaign as targeting this audience and produce one thing for each target audience. And so all you have to do, let me just go back to my screen share. All you have to do is be able to, so when I see your 2 examples of propaganda, I'll know what your strategy was because you've written this short essay where you've said, here is my campaign strategy. These were my goals. This was what I wanted to make sure I activated emotion. I wanted to make sure I helped create a us versus them, right? I wanted to make sure I simplified information. Here's how I did it, right? So, and here's what I learned in the course that helped me to create that propaganda, right? So I'll interpret your creative work. You've created this creative work, right? And I'll understand what your intention was by reading your short essay,
Okay.
right? So in a way, you might want to start writing this first as a way to figure out what your strategy is, and then create your 2 examples once you've figured out what your strategy is. I don't know if that makes sense, but maybe you have other questions.
And so for the hyperlinks that you want us to put in the essay, what are those for?
Good question. So here in your essay, you are describing your strategy and reflecting on your strategy, but you're also showing me that you've kind of learned. So for instance, you might, let's say that garbage thing. I'm thinking about what Ryan Holiday might have done to gain awareness for the garbage campaign. And in doing that, I say, well, Ryan Holiday really he did that thing with defacing the billboards, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And I might, if I choose to do something really crazy, like maybe, I don't know, maybe like putting a sign on all my neighbors' garbage, right? Anybody who's got more than 3 containers of garbage, and I maybe put a sticker on their garbage box going like, I don't know, you garbage pig, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I would write about that going, I got attention by defacing public property, kind of like Ryan Holiday did, right?
So you want us to use references that we read throughout the semester to back up what the strategies we used? Okay.
You got it.
And that's where the hyperlinks come in?
And yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Great question, Olivia. What other questions do you have? So one of the reasons why I invite you to form a partner, you see how it says that if you want, you can form a partner. Because imagine sitting all by yourself in a room and trying to brainstorm about how do I increase awareness about how much garbage people make. I'm just sitting there at my desk thinking, oh man, I don't have any ideas. But the minute I get in a creative community with like you, I come up with really cool ideas, right? So if you form a partnership, you probably will have probably have more creativity in your brainstorming, right? And you'll probably generate more ideas. And so then let's just say we were to brainstorm about this garbage thing. We already got that we're going to deface the garbage cans. And now, like in 10 more minutes, we'll have 3 more ideas. At the end of that conversation, okay, you go do those 2. I'll go do those 2. Right? And then we come back and give each other feedback, and we look at each other's work and we say, I wonder if you should, and you give each other feedback. And it's like, and then you produce something that's awesome. Because that's how advertising agencies, that's how propaganda, people don't make propaganda all by themselves. They work generally in a creative team. So you can do that for this project. Cool, huh?
Cool.
And you already have, most of you have already a high functioning partner, or you may form another partner, a new partner if you want. What other questions do you have about Leap 4? Okay, if this is successful, you guys will have something in your portfolio that will get you a $60,000 a year job. I'm kind of like hoping that might be some possible outcome here, because it's a chance to really apply your creativity and your knowledge of propaganda in one fell swoop. But who knows? All right, so next week is our last week of class. You're only doing a small something, and let me just review that briefly, and then I'm going to let you go in 5 minutes, okay? Next week, our topic is global propaganda. It's our last official class. We are, what are we doing? We are doing one big activity and taking a quiz. The last quiz, yay! Okay, let's see if the Pathright will load. Come on, baby. Oh, don't make me sign in. Don't make me sign in. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So let me scroll down. Last assignment ever for reading for this class, and it's a really cool topic. We're kind of connecting back to the world in our final week. The topic is global propaganda. Propaganda is an essential tool of power all over the world. We'll take a look at Russia, China, and Turkey to see what propaganda looks like. Here's what I want you to do. It's a Twitter activity. We're going to read this really interesting essay by Samantha Powers called "Why Foreign Propaganda is More Dangerous Now." Oh, now that's a good headline, right? After you read this article, I want you to select 2 articles and 2 videos from the list below. You can choose any of them you want. Choose 2 articles and choose 2 videos. Read and then compose 4 well-formed tweets to represent key ideas from what you learned using the COM416 hashtag in at least one of the tweets. Try to include a relevant other hashtag or URL or image. Be sure to like, respond, and comment on the work of at least one other student in this class. So I've got a really fascinating political ad from Turkey and a short article about propaganda in Istanbul. Really interesting articles from the New York Times and videos on propaganda in China, including Chinese propaganda turns to pop rap, and an animated video called "Pay Attention to the 5-Year Plan." So Chinese propaganda. And propaganda in Russia, right? With a video called "Silencing Dissent in Russia, Putin's Propaganda Machine," and then a couple of short articles, including the one about RT. RT.com, Russia Today, the government foreign propaganda agency that many Americans do not understand is a form of Russian propaganda. When is a TV channel a foreign agent? Okay, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. The quiz is ready for you now. Quiz 4 represents your reading for weeks 11 and 12 about ISIS propaganda and about fake news. So I'm going to give you that whole idea of timing the test. That just did not work out. Too many of you were struggling with that. So you have the whole week to do it. But be sure that you don't cut and paste. This is an open book, open note quiz that measures the quality of your reading comprehension. But because of that, be sure to write in your own words with no cut and paste. All right, that's where I will ding you if I see something like that. Use your own great writing to that. And then finally, we'll have our live synchronous class back on April 25th. You guys have any questions? I'm so glad you were here. I think you guys are the best students in the class. And of course, to those of you, my other best students in the class who are watching the recording, look on the page below to see what your instructions are for class participation. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Work hard. Work hard.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.